This show is sponsored by SEVI, answering all your commercial real estate needs. SEVI is the first commercial real estate company committed to the 4 C's: commercial real estate, community, content, and culture. Go visit SEVI at SEVI, SEVI properties.com. Again, SEVIproperties.com. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the DMV Business Show. I'm your host, Otto Sevilla, and today I have a very special guest for you. We have Harris Fanaroff. Harris is the founder and CEO of Linked Revenue. Welcome to the show, Harris.
Hey, Otto. Really excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course, the pleasure is all mine. Before we go into your business and personal journey, if the audience hearing for the first time and they're like, what is Linked Revenue? If you can just give us just a brief general overview what you folks do.
Yeah, absolutely. We're a LinkedIn agency that helps founders, executives, chief revenue officers generate more business, new business opportunities from LinkedIn. We handle it for them because they often don't have the time, interest, knowledge in order to do it. So we handle it for them and help them generate new sales opportunities from LinkedIn.
Awesome. Can't wait to go into the details as far as what can we do in LinkedIn to help our business. But before that, are you originally here from the DC, Maryland, Northern Virginia area?
Yeah, I grew up in Potomac, Maryland, and went off to college in Pennsylvania, and then came back to the DMV, lived in DC, lived in Arlington, and now made my way back about 5 minutes. My wife and I bought a house about 5 minutes from where I grew up. So I am DMV born and raised, and here for the long haul. Love the area, passionate about the area, so I love it here.
Awesome. So how was it growing up in Mocha? What were you into as a child? I don't know, any activities or sports?
Yeah, I was obsessed with baseball. Baseball was my thing. Played it from basically the age of 3 through college. Got drafted out of high school as a left-handed pitcher, first baseman. Baseball was my obsession. I played all the sports. I was obsessed with sports. Still relatively obsessed with sports as an adult can be, but baseball was my passion and what I really focused all my time and energy on from a playing perspective.
Sure. You said drafted out of high school?
Drafted out of high school. Yep.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you must have been very good then.
I was all right. I don't know. It was very late. It was very late in the draft. It was very late in the draft. So it was the 50th round. It was as late as you can be in the draft.
Yeah.
But it was a very cool opportunity. And yeah, it was awesome. It'd be something
That's awesome.
that I can tell my 1-year-old about as he gets older. And hopefully I help him a little bit on his sports journey as well, if that's what he's interested in.
Where'd you go to high school, Harris?
Churchill.
Okay. All right. So I guess in Churchill, what position did you play?
I was a left-handed pitcher and first baseman.
Okay. Okay. And hold on, did the Nationals draft you?
And that's did draft me. Yes, it was local.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. That's even sweeter.
Yeah, it was cool. It was very cool. I got the call senior year in the summer. I guess it was 14 years ago at this point, which is crazy. At Beach Week. So I was at Beach Week with my buddies, and I got the call from the Nats, and it was really cool. It was awesome.
Were you even expecting that, or were you thinking of going to college and then playing ball in college and,
I
majoring?
did. So I knew that there was a bunch of scouts at some of the games that I was at. I did end up declining and going to college. So when you're drafted as late as I was, they don't offer you very much money.
Mm-hmm.
No brainer to go to college. And so I did still go to college, play ball. I did not get drafted after college.
Okay.
Didn't have a very good college career athletically. We can go into that if we want to. I'm happy to talk about it pretty openly. But yeah, it was a very cool experience to have that happen. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
That's good. Was it same position in college, or did that change?
So it changed a little bit.
Okay.
I don't know how familiar you are with baseball, but I got something called the yips in college, which the yips, if you know what baseball is, it's where, how I like to describe it is your head and your arm stop talking. So I had thrown a baseball since I was basically 3 years old, and I got to college in the spring of my freshman year. I forgot how to throw, and it really, really, I mean, for lack of a better term, sucked. It was a horrible experience. Mentally, one of the hardest things I've ever gone through, and I really, really struggled. I came back a little bit as a position player, first baseman, outfielder, Coach was kind of like, you're a pitcher that can't pitch. And it was a really triggering, tough experience. I had really good summers. I just didn't perform that well uh, while at Lehigh. So it was a tough experience. I think I learned a lot. I think it pushes me a lot in what I do now. It helped me want to be and become an entrepreneur. I think it fuels me every day. That quote failure fuels me every day. I don't think I would be having the success from an entrepreneurial perspective that I'm having now without that, what I would call a quote failure. Not a failure because I learned a lot, but it was a triggering and a tough situation that I went through back then.
Sure. It's almost like a chip on your shoulder there to, prove everyone wrong.
I think so. I think that, and that's how I've worked around it and gotten through it now. I was introduced to a leadership coach who's a friend of my cousin. I didn't know what leadership coaching was. It was right after college. And I was still dealing with the failure, quote, failure,
Hmm.
what happened in my baseball career. And he and I had 10 sessions, and it really did transform and change my life, and working with him and being able to figure out, okay, what do you want to be known for after this? Like, that was part of your life and your identity back then, but like, what is it that you want to be known for? And I have leaned into this entrepreneurship thing. By no means did I have success as an entrepreneur back then, but I kind of started to take on this identity of wanting that. And it took me a bunch of failed ventures and trying different things and whatever to get to the point that I'm at now. And I still think I have plenty to learn and plenty new things to get to and get better at. But that was really where I started to wrap my new identity around this entrepreneurship concept.
Did you always have that interest in entrepreneurship, Harris, or was it developed with going through those sessions in college that you started looking into this?
I was always the guy and the kid who was like trying to think of new business ideas. Like that was just me. My dad's an entrepreneur. My grandfather was an entrepreneur. So I kind of come from that in a way. And I was always just interested in like business and stuff
Sure.
like that. I'm not interested in, like, I was a finance major at Lehigh, not interested in like getting into the nitty gritty of numbers. That's not what I get excited about, but I do get excited about like, how can we generate new business? How can we make this company more profitable? That's what I love. How can we jumpstart a startup?
Sure.
Uh, and so what I do now helps me to lean into all those different things. And I finally found it, but it was by no means a straight line path.
I love that you briefly mentioned that you tried different things, after college, different ventures, and some work didn't work out to lead you to where you are today with linked revenue. If you can just go into what did you try, how was that process, what you learned from that?
For sure. My first job out of college was 40, 50 hours a week, just calling chief nursing officers all day, every day, calling, emailing, whatever I could do to get a hold of them. And it was a grueling, grinding, brutal, brutal, brutal job. I mean, they put a bunch of people right out of college, and I doubt they do this now, but maybe they do, into like a pit. And essentially you just call all day, every day, trying to get people's attention and get conversations. I happen to be chief nursing officers that I would call. And it was so flipping hard. But it taught me a lot of really good business skills. And I kind of cut my teeth that way. I had success after a year. I got promoted, which was good, which led me into more of an account management, business development role. And then for the last 10 years, I've been in some type of business development, account management role until about a year ago when I went out on my own. But while doing that, I was always trying to start something on the side. I had a coaching business where I helped high school athletes transition to college. I had a mental performance that I worked with some college pro and high school athletes. I did something with Yale University football, helping their football players get ready to make the jump into the real world. So I was always on the side, in addition to these business development jobs, doing something I could to make money, additional money.
Sure.
And they were fine. They were okay. But really, like, when things started to jump off was about a year ago when I went full time into what I do now with linked revenue.
And when you decided to make that jump full time into entrepreneurship, was it linked revenue or was it something else? And then eventually it pivoted to linked revenue.
Yeah, great question. Because it is never, I'm sure you've done this a lot. You know that it's never what we think it's going to be. So it's funny.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the story. So about 3 years ago, I took a course on social selling and building your personal brand on Twitter and LinkedIn. And I was going to do it for the company that I was working for. Like that was the whole goal, was I was going to promote the company. It was a leadership development company that I was working for. And I was going to promote them on social media. And I took this course and I thought, that's fine. That's something I can do, but I can also promote myself and what I'm interested in. And I'm going to build my own personal brand because I think there's a lot of value in that. So luckily, 3 years ago, I started doing that. And I built it actually and the course, they were like, pick something you're passionate about, something you've done a lot of. And so I picked new hire onboarding. And so for basically 18 months, maybe 18 months to 2 years, I started posting basically every single day about new hire onboarding. Here's what you need to do. Here's how to do it effectively. Here's how to get salespeople on. Like I was doing that a lot. So I started posting about it. And while I was working a business development job, I had a couple new hire onboarding consulting clients. And it was fine. But what I kept hearing was, we don't care enough about our employees to invest in them for onboarding. They didn't say it that bluntly, but that was essentially what they were saying. And two, we're not hiring right now. So we'll call you when we're hiring because we want to work with you, but we have to be hiring. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, this is a hard business to be in. Luckily, at the same exact time, one of my clients was the founder of a 200-person company, one of my onboarding clients. And he was like, I love what you're doing on LinkedIn. Like, how do you do it? What's your process? And so I told him, here's what I do, blah, blah, blah. He goes, I don't have the time, capacity, knowledge, ability to do that. Will you do it for me? And I thought to myself, I'm like, will you pay me to do it? And he was like, yeah, absolutely. I would love to do that. That sounds like an easy ROI. And from there, the business was born. And within, honestly, a month, that had taken over more than the new hire onboarding because I just started talking and posting about that. And that was more really what I cared about, was like new business, LinkedIn selling. Like that was what I get energy from. That's what I had done. I just like was doing a lot of this new hire onboarding stuff. So I was posting about it. And then it just started to flow from there. And now all of my clients come from inbound leads on LinkedIn. I talk about what I do every day, and it's been amazing. And I didn't by no means start out trying to build a LinkedIn business. It kind of came to me.
That's amazing. Would you say most of your clients are now coming inbound from LinkedIn or, I don't know, social media in general?
So about 75% of my clients come inbound. The other 25% are referral. So current clients being like, they're talking to their buddy and their buddy's like, hey, John Smith, I love what you're doing on LinkedIn. And he's like, I have a secret weapon that helps me do it. It's not actually me. Let me introduce you. So about a fourth come from there. 3/4 come from people just sending me a direct message being like, hey, I want to learn more about what you do.
Sure. That's awesome. So since you're the LinkedIn pro, we're going to go a little bit into LinkedIn. So if someone's listening to this, maybe they're an executive, maybe they're an owner of a company, what can they do, I guess, to stand out, build their brand, their presence on LinkedIn online?
Great question. There's so many different ways I can take that. To start, most people don't even have their profile set up correctly. And by correctly, they don't have a professional photo. They don't have a good background cover photo. They haven't touched their about section in 15, 20, 25 years. And so even if someone is going to your profile, they don't know what you're about. So to start, set up your profile for success. Do a normal profile photo, get a good background cover photo. Set up your about section, make it fun, interesting, and written by you. One of my biggest pet peeves is like when your LinkedIn section is third person, like it doesn't make any sense. Why would anybody write an about section for you on so cut that, make it about you, write it in a human way. I have a format that I love to use. So if you go to my profile, you see my about section. All my clients have something very similar. Start off with what you do, one sentence about it. So we help executives generate revenue from LinkedIn. Second sentence should be about what is the biggest hurdle people say. For me, it's, oh, I don't have time to do this. We help you do it without you having to spend time on the platform while still making sure that it's your authentic voice. That is almost always the biggest pushback I'll hear in my first conversation. So I say that. I do a little bit more about the process, and then I go into a little bit about me. I've been to 50 states, drafted by the Nats, have an amazing wife and a 1-year-old. Like I keep it simple and short, but talk about your about section. So that'll be my format there. Set up your profile for success would be step one. Step two is, and I could spend 24 hours talking about this, so I'll try to keep this as brief as possible. create content targeted at one specific ICP, one specific ideal customer profile. Commit to doing that 1 day a week for 6 months and quit. You're not going to have success doing it in 1 month. Write content. Where can content come from? Podcasts that you listen to, articles that you read, conversations that you have. Every day, everybody has content in them. It's just about remembering to write it down and putting it on LinkedIn and staying consistent with it. So those would be some of the big suggestions that I would have. Again, I could talk for 3 days straight about this, but I'll try to keep it brief.
So you mentioned post, you said once a week?
If you're not doing anything, post
Yeah.
once a week.
Okay.
Right now, where I'm at, I post 5 times a week. You don't need, if you're an executive listening to this, you don't need to post 5 times a week. A lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to post 5 times a week, and they burn out within a week and they're done. And they're like, that didn't work. Do not do that. Like, that is the biggest problem that I see people do, is they try to get it all done and it does not work. You have to be willing to play the long game with this. Like, do it over 6 months. Honestly, do it over a year, do it over 2 years. Like, your inbound leads will start to happen after 6 months. They're not going to happen after a week. It's just not, you might get lucky, but it's really not going to happen. You have to be willing to stick with it and be consistent for the long haul.
And you mentioned your ICP, right? So your ideal client profile. Or should they only be talking about business, or can they add some personal flair, some things into it? Or what do you recommend people share?
I love it. I get this question I do a lot of presentations for sales teams and on like how to use LinkedIn effectively. And this question comes up all the time. How much should I post personal versus business? Here's my big recommendation. Don't make it just personal, because this is a business platform. But on the other side, don't make it a constant commercial about your organization. Those are like two ends of the spectrum that I see all the time on LinkedIn. Someone's like, I see that person all the time, but I have no idea what they sell. And then it's like, oh, every time that person posts, it's a commercial for their company, and I'm just, no chance I'm reading that.
Yeah.
You want to be somewhere in between. I do recommend doing personal like 10 to 20% of the time. And if you follow me or you check out my content, I'm about 10 to 20% of the time, usually once a week or every other week, I'll post something personal. I do always try to relate it to work somehow. So I posted a lot about my grandma. She had a really big influence on me. I posted a lot about being a new dad and how that relates to entrepreneurship. I try to build everything into something work related on the personal side. But for the most part, my content, what I'm always trying to do is share something valuable that a founder, chief revenue officer, or head of sales will read that and get something from it. So I'm not trying to sell what I do at Linked Revenue, and basically any of my posts. I want them to read that and say, wow, there's something I can implement directly from that post. And every time I see Harris post, I, as the founder, chief revenue, or head of sales, am going to take something away. That is like fully my mentality when I create content. So how I think about that is, I'm in conversations and either they say something to me that I'm like, wow, that's super interesting, let me jot that down, that's gonna be really good content. Or I say something and they're like, oh, wow, I want to implement that and do that. And I'm like, if that person found that interesting, let me just share that more broadly with my audience. And hopefully one other person will find this interesting. I think that's another big thing that people worry about. Say, oh, I got one like or one comment. Most people on LinkedIn are silent lurkers. They're going to read your stuff and never like and comment. I cannot tell you enough how many times I see somebody in real life and they're like, Harris, I love what you're doing on LinkedIn. I'm like, I have never seen you like or comment on a single post I've done in 3 years. Like, please just tell me once so that I know. But that's just the reality of how it works and how a lot of people interact with social, especially on LinkedIn.
Harris, what do you recommend when people are posting? Whether is it just text? Should you add a picture? Should you add video? What's better as far as visibility and views?
Mix it up is my
Okay.
answer. Don't do the same thing every time. Picture, what I've been finding with me and a lot of my clients, AI generated pictures are doing horrible. Absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
Like, even Canva created pictures are doing pretty poorly right now. Generalization. Some might do well. But if it's like picture from your phone, that will do well. Something personal, that will do well. I love face-to-camera video. I think that's a severely underutilized tactic. Most people are not willing to go on video. I need to be better about this myself. I try to push all my clients to do this. But for the most part, most of my content is just written out. Difference in lengths. Sometimes it's longer. A lot of times it's mid. Sometimes it's shorter. I think if like you're doing the same thing every time, your audience would be like, that's boring. Harris says the same thing every time. I don't want to see that. So I do try to mix things up. And there isn't one magic bullet because everybody would do the same thing every time. And I love that the algorithm doesn't allow that to happen.
Yeah, so mix it up then. So there's no priority as far as text only first, or and then picture and then video last, nothing like that.
No,
Okay.
I don't think there's a magic bullet to it. I think if there were, everybody would do the same thing and LinkedIn would be terrible. So I think they like reward people for mixing it up.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking about video, what do you think about video with direct messaging people?
Oh man, if you followed me, you know I'm all about this. This is the hack on LinkedIn that nobody is doing. I post about this all the time, and I am in 20 plus executives LinkedIn's every day. Nobody is doing this from a selling perspective. There's a feature on LinkedIn. It only works if you're connected to somebody. You can send them a video message. Hey, great to connect with you. I'm going to be in Chicago the end of July. Would love to meet up when we're in person. That way you just like put a face to a name. Nobody is doing this. Like less than 1% of the direct messages that all of my clients receive are a video message. Will it be 100% bulletproof? Absolutely not. Nothing in sales ever is. But that is the way to stick out. I post about this pretty often. Like, do things that others won't and prove that you're a real human being sending messages and not an AI robot. And you'll have a lot more success on LinkedIn. A lot of people want the easy way out. Let me send 10,000 direct messages and hope and pray that somebody responds. I don't believe in that. I hate that methodology. Do personalized, casual video messages. You stick out really, really well. So I love that you brought that up.
And video, Harris, you can only send if you're connected with that person already, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I always recommend connecting with somebody, not sending a direct message with it, unless you already know them or like you have a mutual connection with them, because, and this is sort of sad, but most of the time, if I see a direct message with a connection request, they're trying to sell me something and I'm going to decline it immediately. Versus like, oh, I see a connection request. Yeah, I might be interested in what that person's going to eventually post. I just think if you're sending direct messages with a connection request, most people think you're trying to sell them immediately. And I think that's a great way to get the X from people. So my recommendation is just like connect with people. Don't send them the direct message then. Maybe send them a video message a week later, 3 days later, whatever it is that you want to do. But don't include it. Don't include a message with the connection request is my personal perspective.
That's interesting. Okay, so if you want to connect with someone, just hit the connect, don't send anything, and then hopefully they accept, and then afterwards, then you can send a message.
Exactly. That's my recommendation. I think that's what I study this stuff all the time.
Sure.
I see what works versus what doesn't. Unless if you have some type of mutual connection or you've met them before, then I would include that in the connection request. That's the only caveat to that.
Speaking of connections, what I've noticed is some people, I look at someone's post and then I see some of the comments in them. And I'm like, okay, these are other people who might be colleagues or have similar roles to this person. And I'm like, should they be connected more to their ideal client profile instead of just friends that they used to work for, ex-colleagues and now current colleagues, people in the same industry and field? Or what's your opinion?
In an ideal world, that happens.
Yes.
And your prospects aren't going to comment on your posts. I've never met anybody that will really happen on a consistent basis. Your friends that you've met on LinkedIn are more likely, hey, I want to lift that person up. I want to help them. I do that all the time. I do it all day, every day for my friends that I know are growing also on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
In an ideal world, yes, your prospects do it. I never see it. I mean, like they're not going to really do that. And so I love the idea of like lifting others up that are trying to build content. I mean, the reality is 1% of LinkedIn users post per month. once per month, 1%. So very few people are willing to put themselves out there on a consistent basis. And so I celebrate people whose content I like, who are continuing to put in the grind and do the hard work. Like, this is not easy. Nothing in sales is easy. Let me actually first say that. Cold calling people is not easy. Cold emailing people is not easy. LinkedIn, creating content is not, there's nothing in B2B sales and in sales in general that's easy. So I do respect people that are continuing to put in the grind and do the hard work. And I'll comment and engage with them all the time from that perspective.
You know what? It is true. I do notice that typically your ideal client profile is not liking it. Well, they may like it, but as far as commenting, it's less likely. But at least there you get some momentum with that post, and then their eyeballs, they see it, right?
And that's why I want to like lift up my friends and people I know that are putting in the work to do it. So if I like and comment, and hopefully it showcases it to some of my audience, I would love that. I want other people to win. Like, there's enough business to go out there that I'm very liberal with my likes and comments. I want other people to win. If people are putting in the hard work, they're doing hard, honest work, like, I want them to win.
Yeah.
That's how I think about LinkedIn.
You just mentioned now, Harris, that you said less than 1%, I guess, of the people post once a month on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Crazy
Wow.
stat.
That's crazy.
1% of all of LinkedIn users post at least once per month. Like, just by posting once per month, you are separating yourself from everybody else out there. I mean, that's like there's such an opportunity here for so many especially executives, where you have a really good audience already. Like, if you've been in business for 10, 15, 20 plus years and you've never really like taken advantage of a pretty big audience that you have, it's like turning the faucet on. Your ability to get leads is going to be a lot easier. It's just about staying consistent with it, connecting with the right people, sending the right direct messages. So I'm pretty passionate about like, what is the right direct message to send? But most people aren't going to do it. They don't know what to say. They're worried nobody's going to like or comment on it. It can be hard to see ROI at times. Someone might email you because they saw a LinkedIn post, but they might not tell you, hey, I saw your LinkedIn post, but like, oh, I just reminded of Harris. I'm going to send Harris an email. Or I'm going to give Harris a call. Like, that stuff happens, and it's really hard to be like, this was because of that LinkedIn post. But that's the reality of the world, is like, if you are posting constantly, you're staying top of mind for people in a world where otherwise, how are they reminded of you from a business context? They're not. You're increasing your surface area for luck every time you post something valuable. Your ability to get, quote, lucky increases every time somebody potentially sees you. By not posting, you never have the ability to, quote, get lucky. By posting, you have the opportunity to get lucky.
You mentioned earlier you took this LinkedIn course. I think it was around 3 years ago or so. Was that around the same time you got, I guess, serious about LinkedIn?
Yeah, it was about 3 years ago was when I started to like take it seriously. I'd always been like a casual user, but this course was like, I went all in on Twitter and LinkedIn.
What I myself around that time also, I think it was during the pandemic that, people had more time in their hands. They're like, hey, let me see what other ways I can generate business. And I was one of those people, and I took it a little bit seriously. But what I have noticed the past couple of years, that I'm sure is a change in algorithm, but as far as everything has just gone down, even though people are still not posting much, like you said, less than 1% a month.
I would agree with that, especially on Twitter. On Twitter, it's like even worse. It's
Oh,
like
really?
pretty
Oh, wow.
hard to get engagement. If you try to play the algorithm game, you're going to get burnt out pretty quickly and pretty easily. And if you're worried about, hey, I'm not getting as many likes as I was 3-6 months ago, you're going to get burnt out and you're going to stop. I've seen the benefits. They're amazing it's changed my life, honestly. And I've seen it change my client's life. You just have to stick with it and stick with it through it. It shouldn't be your only business development strategy. You should also go to in-person events. You should try to find partnerships. You should potentially cold call if that works for you. I'm not a big proponent in cold email. I just like don't think it works. But like, you should continue to do those things. But I think LinkedIn should be part of your strategy. If you sell B2B, and I guess B2C, all my clients are B2B, but there's a huge opportunity there. If you can do it right, stick with it, all it takes in a B2B sell is like one person seeing you and being like, that's who I need. Let me reach out. Like one of my earliest clients, it's an unbelievable story. One of my earliest clients came from a buddy of mine from college, hadn't talked to in a decade, literally 10 years. And he was playing golf in a golf tournament. He was in a golf tournament with a guy that said, hey, I think I have an opportunity to generate sales from LinkedIn. Do you know anybody? This guy sent my buddy from college, sent me a direct message being like, hey, I want to introduce you to this guy I was just playing golf with. I hadn't talked to this guy in a decade. And he had thought about me because he saw me every single day, 5 days, not every day, 5 days a week for several months. It was like, Harris clearly knows this stuff. He talks about it often, make connection. Guy's been one of my best clients for 9 months now. Been unbelievable.
And this college buddy never probably commented or liked any of the posts, I assume,
Never
right?
once.
Yeah.
Not one single time in as long as I had been posting. Not one time. So it's just like you never know what's happening. And if I never posted, I'm not getting lucky in that situation.
Yeah.
Because of that, I'm getting lucky in that situation. And now that guy's introduced me to 3 other people. So like the lifetime ROI of that is just insane. And that's one of a million different stories that I have for me and all of my different clients. But it doesn't happen from a week of posting. It doesn't even happen from a month of posting. It's 6+ months, staying consistent with it, doing the right thing, creating good content is how it's overall strategy.
What time do you recommend is the best time to post?
I and all my clients post between 8 and 9 a.m. Eastern.
Yeah.
I don't have hard data around, is that perfect for everybody? I think people go on LinkedIn anecdotally in the morning before their workday, and I just happen to be Eastern time. That's my thought process. I know certain people who have different ideas. I stick between 8 and 9 a.m. Eastern. And that's when I also comment and engage. And that's like what I block. My calendar's blocked every single day between 8 and 9 a.m. for me to post with my clients, engage with my client, all that different stuff every day between 8 and 9 a.m.
Now, as far as your content, Harris, are you saying you sit down once a week and you just write it out, or do you plan it, or is it every day you just see how you feel, or how do you go about it?
I love that question. I might be unique. I tried these crazy content calendars and it just did not work for me at all.
Okay.
At all. I tried the Notion pages. I tried this. What I do is I have a notes app on my phone. And when somebody says something interesting, I write it down as a notes app. Every day this happens. That is my tweet for the next day. And then a week later, that becomes my LinkedIn post. This has worked for honestly several years now. I tried the crazy content calendar. I tried sitting down and writing. It did not work for me. You have to figure out what works for you. What I do with all my clients is I interview them once a month. So they tell me who their ideal customer profile is. They tell me who they want to talk to. And it's my job to come up with good questions that's going to generate good content for them. And so then they say all the content in this type of format. We use Otter. We use transcription tool to take it on the back end. We write up posts for them. We post it at the right time. We do all those things. But I don't think it works to just sit down and write. I think my opinion, and especially for me, it's never worked for any of my clients either.
Yeah. No, I hear people, they're like, I sit down Sunday for 3 hours and I write it out. And I'm similar. I use my notes, and I'm somewhere with my children in a game or something, or I'm just going about my day, or I just finish off a call with a client. I'm like, oh, they asked this question. Perfect. And I just put that idea. I put that idea in there.
That's exactly how it has to work. That's the way to do it, I think. It does build, it takes a while to build that muscle to be like, wow, that's going to be really good content. Now that's how my brain operates, but 2 years ago, it didn't operate that way. You just get in that, you're like, and now my clients will text me and they'll be like, oh my God, I just had an incredible call, send me a really good post. I'm like, cool, send me a drafted email or send me a text. Let's get it out tomorrow. And that happens all the time.
Okay.
It becomes ingrained after several months, but it does take several months.
Yeah. I mean, it's like that. I'm doing anything and I can just think about, oh, this is a great content idea. Here's a little thing. And then I add 2 sentences and I keep on adding it throughout another day or so. And then, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And what I love that you do, and some of my clients do this too, so smart to have a podcast like this, and you can use LinkedIn as a way to get podcast client, like podcast people on your podcast, and then you never know where it can go from there. I'm pretty sure you reached out to me on LinkedIn, and now we have a relationship here. I'm going to learn about what you do, and maybe I come across one of your ideal prospects in some of my conversations, and now you're the person that I go to. So like how I believe LinkedIn should be used from a selling perspective is like bring people into your network that otherwise wouldn't have been there. That could be an in-person event. That could be inviting them to be a expert for a white paper. That could be inviting them to a podcast like we're doing here. Do not just spray and pray, hey, buy my product. Everybody else is doing that. If you want to stick out, do not do that. 99% of people, hey, buy my leads product, or I can help get you 5,000 calls per minute with my amazing leads and I'm the best. And that is what everybody is doing. Use it as a way to try to build a relationship, play the long game, and know that maybe 6 months, maybe 6 years down the line, I will bring somebody a client for you, or I'll become a client for you. It has to be the long game. Like so many people try to play LinkedIn as the short, immediate sell. It just doesn't work. Like it's a great way to get burnt out and have no success. Play the long game, build real relationships, provide value for the other person, and good things will happen over the long haul. You just have to be committed and willing to play the long game.
Harris, I love that you mentioned building relationship. How can someone go about actually building relationship instead of just spamming and just pitching people?
Most messages are people saying, here's why we're the best. Here's why our company is amazing, and here's why you need it. That to me, that just doesn't make any sense. Like, why should you're a random stranger? I wouldn't come up to you and tell you why my product is the best and you need it. Like that concept doesn't make any sense. Like, let's treat it like we would in person. And so let me try to figure out what you care about. Okay, so I could think, I'm just making this up. Susie is a CHRO, Chief Human Resource Officer of a Fortune 500 company. She's getting pitched all the time on different products. What I think she might care about is getting together with other CHROs to listen to an expert on generations in the workforce. So instead of saying, hey, Susie, come buy my SaaS product that's amazing because it does blah, 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 blah. She doesn't care about it all. I want to use LinkedIn as a way to invite her to an event with other CHROs, provide so much value in that meal or meeting or whatever it is that she's like, oh, Harris is a good guy. I'm actually curious what Harris sells. Once I built that relationship and provided something of value for her, I've earned the right to potentially tell her about what I do. Most people do this wrong. And they're like, hey, Susie, buy my thing. It's the best. And here's why. She doesn't care. She's getting those all day. You have to provide so much value for somebody that they are willing to listen to whatever you have afterwards. But I think a lot of people mix up the order of that.
I love it. That's great. Coming to an end here soon, Harris, obviously you're busy growing the company and everything. When you're not busy working, what do you like to do for fun in your free time?
So I have a 1-year-old, or he's 14 months now. He takes up the majority of, in a very good way, he takes up the majority of what, quote, free time I used to have. So me, my wife, and our 14-month-old and our little dog spend all of our other time together. I do love to golf. So if I can get out to the golfing, I try to do that as much as I can. I like to play softball, old man softball. It helps me keep my competitive juices flowing. But at the end of the day, there's nothing more important than spending time with family and my wife and our 1-year-old.
Yeah, no, it's true. Family is the most important thing.
Absolutely.
What does the future look like for you in linked revenue? What are you most excited about for the next couple of years?
We're growing at a pretty fast rate right now. All of our leads and all of our business development is inbound right now. So I'm excited to get it to the point where we start to do some outbound stuff and form some partnerships. We have a lot of partnerships with VCs and private equity companies that are excited to continue to expand out. So whenever they invest in a company, they're bringing us in to partner and grow the brand of the founder and or chief revenue officer. It's been a really, really good partnership. So I'm excited about what that can look like. We have some of that with financial advisors. We have some of that with executive coaches. I'm excited about building out more partnerships. We're growing the team. We're at 8 people as of July 1. So I'm excited to continue to expand out, get more people involved, continue to do more for our clients too. The more and more we do this, the more we're learning about what works. What can we do that works for John Smith that we can do for Susie.
Mhm.
I love that idea. We're learning it every day. So I'm excited to keep growing, keep making this thing bigger, and keep providing a ton of value for our clients.
That's awesome. If people want to learn more about you and linked revenue, where can they go to?
I recommend they check me out on LinkedIn. That's going to be the best place. Harris Fanaroff. I can also be reached via email, harris@linked-revenue.com. They can go to linked-revenue.com to find us. Shoot me a message. If you listen to this, you liked it, or you didn't like it, let me know. I love hearing feedback. And I want to thank you so much for having me on. This was great. I really enjoyed our conversation today.
Of course. Thank you. Really had a great time.
Thanks.
Take care.